Admiral Zex Terra's four-fingered hand glided over the holographic display, expanding the image of a blue-green planet that rotated lazily before him. His scaled skin reflected the soft blue light, giving his already imposing figure an almost mythical appearance. 3,000 years of Concordat dominance had made this moment routine, yet he still found a certain pleasure in these first observations. Primitive communication satellites, rudimentary space stations, and approximately 200 artificial objects in orbit, reported Science Officer Nex Lara, her voice carrying the musical inflection of their shared homeworld. They call themselves humans and their planet Earth. No unified planetary government. Approximately 200 territorial divisions they refer to as nations or countries. Zex Terra allowed himself a small clicking sound from his throat, the equivalent of a dismissive chuckle. How do they manage anything with such fragmentation? They don't, Admiral. Nex Lara responded, bringing up footage of human conflicts. They appear to be in constant territorial disputes. They've developed nuclear weapons but primarily used projectile-based technology and combustion engines. The Admiral's ceremonial blade, carried by 30 generations of his bloodline, through countless pacifications, felt comfortably heavy against his hip. It hadn't tasted blood in decades. Most species surrendered before actual combat became necessary. Standard pacification protocol then, he decided, turning to his command circle. Prepare the ultimatum transmission. We'll give them the usual 72-hour consideration period, though I doubt they'll need it. Previous pattern matches suggest an 89% probability of immediate surrender. As the fleet of 50 warships approached the Sol system, junior officers on the bridge placed wagers on how quickly Earth would capitulate. The record for fastest surrender belonged to the Methane brothers of Epsilon Eridani, who had transmitted their surrender 17 minutes after the Concordat fleet arrived. "Sir," called out Tactical Officer Vex Doran, long-range scans show unusual energy signatures beneath their oceans. The Admiral barely glanced at the report. Nuclear submarines. They're a common development stage for war-prone species. Nothing concerning. Vex Doran hesitated. The energy signatures don't match known patterns for nuclear propulsion. Admiral. Their technological path likely diverged slightly from the standard development curve. Document the anomaly for the anthropological division and continue approach. Zex Terra dismissed the concern with a wave of his hand. The Concordat War Council had laughed when reviewing intelligence on this backwater world. Humans spent more resources fighting each other than advancing their technology. The concept both fascinated and disgusted Zex Terra, a species sharing identical DNA fighting over arbitrary borders. Meanwhile, 12 kilometers beneath the Mariana Trench, Commander Sarah Chen received the proximity alert she had trained for her entire life. The massive chamber, carved into the ocean floor in 1962 and continuously expanded since, hummed with sudden activity as hibernating systems activated. Status reports flooded her neural interface as the facility powered up for the first time in 70 years. "All stations report," she ordered, her voice steady despite the adrenaline surge. "Propulsion systems online. Weapons systems initializing. Hull integrity at 100%, came the responses from her crew, each member selected from birth for this moment. Chen opened a secure channel to similar facilities beneath the Atlantic, Pacific, and Arctic Oceans. This is Leviathan Actual to all Kraken Protocol assets. First contact imminent. Maintain stealth protocols. Do not, repeat, do not, power weapon systems until Phase 3 authorization. Above, in Earth's orbit, the Concordat fleet materialized in perfect formation. Zex Terra personally recorded the standard ultimatum message, adding special flourishes to describe the Concordat's undefeated history. "Attention inhabitants of Sol 3. I am Admiral Zex Terra of the Galactic Concordat. Your world is now under our protection and authority." He ended the transmission with the traditional closing. "You have 72 hours to accept our generous terms. Resistance is historically unsuccessful. What neither the Admiral nor the Concordat's 3,000-year history had prepared them for was a species that had been expecting them for generations. The Concordat ships hovered in perfect formation above Earth, their hulls gleaming under the sun's light. The sudden appearance of 50 alien warships sent global communications into chaos. Television broadcasts interrupted regular programming. Social media had exploded with amateur footage, and government hotlines jammed with panicked calls. Ambassador Helen Chen stood in the United Nations Security Council chamber, her expression carefully neutral as the alien message played on the main screen. Around her, world leaders whispered urgently to advisors or stared in shocked silence. "This must be a coordinated response," the Russian president insisted after the transmission ended. "We cannot show division." "Agreed," nodded the American president. "But what response? They're clearly beyond our military capability." Helen Chen stepped forward. "If I may suggest, we should request a meeting aboard their flagship. Buy time while we assess options." What none in the room knew, except the 14 leaders with Omega clearance, was that Chen wasn't merely a UN ambassador. She was also deputy director of the Terran Defense Initiative, established in 1947 after the Roswell incident. As the public meeting continued, Chen slipped away to a secure facility beneath Geneva. 30 representatives from countries officially at odds with each other sat in perfect cooperation around a circular table embedded with technology centuries ahead of what their nations publicly possessed. "Phase 1 complete," she announced. "They've underestimated us exactly as predicted." General Okonkwo of Nigeria nodded. "The Concordat formation matches our historical observations precisely. They've made no tactical adjustments in 3,000 years. Arrogance makes for poor strategy," remarked Admiral Zhou from China. "What of the civilian preparations?" "Evacuation protocols initiated under the guise of alien occupation preparation," reported Director Schmidt. "Coastal launch zones will be clear within 18 hours. Chen activated a secure global channel. "This is Cerberus Actual. Begin Operation Kraken." Across Earth, in deep underwater bases and mountain bunkers, teams activated swarms of microscopic reconnaissance drones. Designed with technology reverse-engineered from crashed scout ships over the past century, these invisible infiltrators would map every weakness in the Concordat fleet. Aboard the Concordat flagship, Admiral Zex Terra studied the initial planetary scans with growing interest. "Their response pattern is unusual," noted his second-in-command. "Most species either attempt immediate resistance or complete submission. These humans are fractured into nations. They likely cannot coordinate effectively," Zex Terra replied, dismissing the concern. "What of these unusual radiation signatures from their oceans?" "Primitive nuclear submarines, as you suggested, though the energy patterns don't fully align with standard fission reactors." The Admiral waved dismissively. "Document the anomaly and continue monitoring. They've requested a delegation meeting to discuss surrender terms. Prepare the ceremonial chamber." That night, as civilians worldwide followed evacuation orders, believing they were fleeing potential bombardment rather than clearing launch zones, Chen made an encrypted call to Himalayan Command. "How many infiltrators have reached target positions?" she asked. 78% deployed, Ambassador. We've confirmed their shield modulation frequencies and mapped their command structure. The Concordat uses standardized ship designs across their fleet, a critical vulnerability. Chen allowed herself a small smile. "Prepare the delegation team. Best actors from intelligence services and special forces. They need to appear appropriately terrified." Beneath the Pacific Ocean, Commander Sarah Chen, Helen's sister, supervised final preparations aboard the Dreadnought Leviathan. The massive vessel, nearly 2 kilometers long and hidden on Earth since 1962, hummed with systems developed through generations of secret research. "Status report," she demanded. "Phase shift generators online. Gravitational manipulators at full capacity. Kinetic lance array charge," her weapons officer reported. "We can breach surface in 90 seconds when ordered." "And the others?" All 7 sister ships report ready. Atlantic, Indian Ocean, and polar positions secure. Sarah studied the tactical display, showing the Concordat fleet in orbit. Humanity had prepared for this moment for generations, hiding their advancement, presenting a facade of primitive development, while secretly building weapons that would reshape galactic understanding of warfare. "They have no idea what's coming," she whispered, her fingers tracing the vessel's command console. 70 years of waiting, and they delivered themselves right to us. The Earth delegation shuttle approached the Concordat flagship, its primitive appearance carefully engineered to reinforce the deception. Inside, Ambassador Helen Chen adjusted her deliberately ill-fitting formal attire and nodded to her team. 5 operatives selected for their acting abilities as much as their combat skills. Remember, appear overwhelmed by their technology. Stumble occasionally. Ask obvious questions, she instructed. "Commander Rivera, you're our designated nervous wreck." Rivera grinned. "Already practicing my shaking hands, ma'am." The shuttle docked with a metallic clunk that seemed crude compared to the Concordat's smooth technology. As planned, the humans gasped audibly when the airlock opened to reveal 2 towering Concordat guards. Admiral Zex Terra waited in the ceremonial chamber, seated on an elevated platform designed to intimidate visitors. The humans entered with appropriately wide eyes and trembling postures. "Perfect," he thought. "Welcome aboard the Eternal Dominance," he announced, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into English. "I trust your journey was adequate." Ambassador Chen stepped forward with carefully rehearsed hesitation. "Most honored Admiral, we bring offerings according to Earth custom." She presented 3 items: a vintage bottle of Scotch whiskey, a ceremonial kukri knife from Nepal, and oddly, a waterproof watch rated for extreme depths. Zex Terra examined the gifts with mild curiosity. "Primitive trinkets, but I accept your gesture of submission. If it pleases the Admiral," Chen continued, her voice deliberately meek, "we require regular breaks for biological necessities. Our species cannot function without periodic rest cycles." The Admiral clicked in amusement. "How inefficient. You may have your breaks. My ship can accommodate your biological weaknesses." The negotiations proceeded slowly, with humans requesting extensions and clarifications on absurdly minor points. During each break, Chen's team planted quantum transmitters throughout the ship, devices designed to collect targeting data and ship schematics while appearing as decorative pins left behind. On the 3rd scheduled break, Chen received an encrypted message. Kraken 67% complete. Civilian evacuation 89% complete. Continue stalling *. Meanwhile, on Earth, global news networks broadcast the ongoing surrender negotiations, while evacuation protocols routed millions away from coastal cities. The cover story, "Preparation for Alien Occupation," provided the perfect excuse to clear the launch zones. Aboard the flagship, Science Officer Nex Lura approached her admiral during the human break period. "Sir, we're detecting unusual launches from multiple Earth locations." Zex Terra studied the sensor readings. Refugee ships attempting to flee. Pathetic. "Should we intercept? Fire warning shots first. If they persist, destroy several as an example." Concordat weapons lanced toward the ascending craft, only to discover they contain nothing but seawater and electronic signatures. The puzzling development momentarily confused the Admiral. "A strange attempt at deception," he mused. "Perhaps they hope to sneak actual refugees among the decoys." When the human delegation returned, Chen noticed Zex Terra's agitation. "Is something wrong, Admiral? Your people attempt to flee despite our negotiations. It shows poor faith." Chen adopted an expression of embarrassment. "Forgive them, Admiral. Many of our people are primitive and fearful. They act without government authorization." The Admiral seemed to accept this explanation, yet something felt increasingly wrong about the humans' behavior. They appeared terrified, yet continued asking for extensions on trivial matters. "These negotiations have dragged on long enough," he declared. You have 12 hours to finalize surrender terms before we begin bombardment of selected population centers. Chen bowed deeply. We understand, Admiral, but might I request one final extension? Our species requires sleep cycles that cannot be interrupted without severe cognitive impairment. Zexterra clicked in irritation, but nodded. 12 hours. No more. After the humans departed for their assigned quarters, he summoned his tactical officer. Something is wrong. Increase sensor sweeps of the planet. I want to know what they're concealing. That night, as the flagship's crew monitored Earth's communications, they intercepted thousands of encrypted transmissions, but could decode none of them. More concerning, their deep-sea scans continued showing fluctuating energy signatures that matched no known human technology. In her temporary quarters, Ambassador Chen activated a quantum communicator disguised as a compact mirror. Leviathan Actual. This is Cerberus. Phase 3 authorization. Kraken Rising. Repeat. Kraken Rising. Commander Sarah Chen's voice returned clearly despite being transmitted from 12 kilometers beneath the Pacific Ocean. Understood. Dreadnoughts will surface in 10 hours. Transmission ends. Helen Chen closed the communicator and smiled. The Concordat's deadline would arrive exactly 30 minutes after the Dreadnoughts emerge. Perfect timing. Admiral Zexterra stood on the command deck as the deadline approached. Earth had sent no further communications since the delegation's departure 12 hours earlier. Commence target acquisition, he ordered. Begin with their capital cities as demonstration strikes. Targets locked, Admiral, reported the weapons officer. Washington, D.C., Beijing, Moscow, and New Delhi targeted for first salvo. The massive Concordat weapons charge, their energy signatures flaring on tactical displays. Zexterra felt the familiar satisfaction of another successful pacification nearly complete. Fire. Energy beams lanced toward Earth, brilliant against the blackness of space. The bridge crew watched with clinical detachment, having witnessed this scenario countless times before. Then something unprecedented happened. The beams impacted what appeared to be invisible shields extending from towers that hadn't existed in their previous scans. The energy dispersed harmlessly across dome-shaped barriers covering major population centers. Impossible, breathed Nexalera. They have no shield technology in our intelligence reports. Before Zexterra could respond, Earth's global communications suddenly unified on a single frequency. A broadcast replaced the expected surrender message. This is Admiral James Chandra of the Terran Defense Accord. Your unprovoked aggression against Earth has been documented and transmitted to 17 neighboring star systems. You have violated Galactic Protocol 37B by firing upon a protected developing world. Zexterra hissed in confusion. There is no Galactic Protocol 37B. This is a desperate bluff. On screen, Admiral Chandra, a stern-faced human with silver temples, continued, You should have scanned deeper. At that precise moment, thermal signatures erupted across Earth's oceans. The tactical display lit up with warnings as the waters began to churn violently around the planet. Massive energy signatures detected. Rising from the oceans, shouted the sensor officer. The Pacific Ocean heaved as something vast breached the surface, a vessel unlike anything in Concordat records. Water cascaded from its kilometer-long hull plated with materials that absorbed scanner signals. The Leviathan rose steadily, its size dwarfing the largest Concordat battlecruiser. What in the 7 moons? Whispered Zexterra. Within minutes, 7 more vessels emerged. From the Atlantic, Indian Ocean, Mediterranean, and even beneath the polar ice caps. Their design varied slightly, but all shared the same impossible scale and technological signatures that defied Concordat classification. Sir, the vessels appear to have been hidden on Earth 4. The tactical officer paused, rechecking his data. This can't be right. Some of these structures have been in place for over 70 Earth years, continuously upgraded and expanded. Ambassador Chen's face replaced Admiral Chandra's on the communication screen. She now wore a military uniform adorned with insignia unknown to the Concordat database. Admiral Zexterra, your delegation aboard your ship has 20 of your minutes to evacuate. After that, we reclaim our property. The Admiral slammed his fist on the command console. Detain all humans aboard immediately. Security teams rushed to the guest quarters, breaking through the doors only to find empty rooms. Instead, they discovered hundreds of small, spider-like devices attached to critical systems throughout the flagship. "Sir, the humans were never in their quarters," reported the security chief. "And these devices, they've been mapping our entire command structure and weapon systems." On the bridge, alarms blared as the massive Earth vessels, the Dreadnoughts, began to move with shocking speed for their size. "How did we miss this?" demanded Zexterra. "How could a primitive species conceal such technology?" Science Officer Nex Lura stared at the sensor readings in disbelief. "They didn't develop along expected technological paths. While we focused on energy weapons and shields, they pursued something entirely different." The first Dreadnought, designated Leviathan in Earth communications, moved into attack position. Its hull reconfigured, sections sliding apart to reveal weapon ports unlike anything in Concordat records. "All vessels, evasive maneuvers," ordered Zexterra. "Full defensive shields." The Leviathan fired, not energy beams, but what appeared to be distortions in space itself. The gravitational weapon passed through the Concordat shields as if they weren't there, shearing off the port section of a cruiser without resistance. "Impossible," Zexterra whispered as the truth dawned on him. Humanity hadn't just been preparing for first contact. They had been waiting for it. The Earth Dreadnoughts moved with the precision of predators that had studied their prey for centuries. Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of Leviathan, watching tactical displays track the Concordat vessels attempting evasive maneuvers. "They're using standard Concordat defense pattern Delta," her tactical officer reported. "Exactly as the archives predicted." "Targeting solutions uploaded," announced Weapons Officer Lai Wei. "Gravitational lance charged." Chen nodded. "Fire." The weapon activated with a low hum rather than the spectacular energy discharge of Concordat weapons. Space itself seemed to ripple between Leviathan and the targeted cruiser. The distortion passed through the alien shields as though they didn't exist, the gravitational shear cutting the vessel in half with surgical precision. "Target neutralized," reported Lai Wei. "Minimal radiation. No secondary explosions. Their shields are calibrated to stop energy and matter," Chen explained to her bridge crew, "but not distortions in space-time itself." Across the battlefield, the other Dreadnoughts engaged with equally devastating effect. Behemoth deployed kinetic projectiles, accelerated beyond light speed by quantum tunneling. Kraken launched swarms of microscopic drones that attached to Concordat hulls and began systematically disabling their systems. Aboard the Concordat flagship, Admiral Zexterra watched in horror as his fleet, undefeated for 3 millennia, disintegrated before weapons his scientists had deemed theoretically impossible. "Emergency jump coordinates," he ordered. "All vessels regroup at fallback position." "Sir, the humans are jamming our jump drives," his navigation officer reported. "They're using our own communication frequencies against us." The Admiral hissed in frustration. "How? How could they know our encrypted channels?" Science Officer Nex Lura's voice was hollow with realization. The artifacts the humans presented during negotiations, they weren't primitive trinkets, they were scanning devices. On the main screen, the Dreadnought Colossus executed a maneuver that should have torn apart a vessel of its size, its hull briefly glowing as inertial dampeners compensated for forces that would have crushed any Concordat ship. "All vessels, concentrate fire on the lead Dreadnought," ordered Zexterra. 20 Concordat ships focused their energy weapons on Leviathan. The beams struck the massive vessel's hull and were absorbed, the Dreadnought's surface temperature barely rising. "They're using our energy against us," whispered Nex Lura, "converting our weapons fire directly into their power systems." Captain Maya Okonkwo, commanding the Dreadnought Typhon, led the assault on the Concordat's left flank. Her vessel's modular design suddenly reconfigured mid-battle, weapon systems deploying from previously hidden compartments. Neural interface engage. She reported as microfine filaments connected her nervous system directly to the ship's tactical systems. The vessel responded to her thoughts faster than any manual control could allow, executing maneuvers with impossible precision. Typhon deployed its signature weapon, a cascading EMP field that bypassed shielding through quantum entanglement. 3 Concordat destroyers went dark simultaneously, their systems completely disabled without harming their crews. "We want prisoners, not casualties," Okonkwo reminded her weapons officer. "Disable, don't destroy unless necessary." The battlefield tactics revealed humanity's technological divergence. While the Concordat evolved toward energy weapons and shields, humans had developed gravitational manipulation, phase-shifting projectiles, and neural interfaces that made their vessels extensions of their pilots' bodies. Admiral Zex Terra watched tactical displays track the rapid destruction of his fleet. 15 ships lost in under 20 minutes, more than the Concordat had lost in the last century of expansion. "Send the emergency signal to Central Command," he ordered. "Request immediate reinforcements." When the Dreadnought Behemoth suddenly appeared alongside his command ship, using technology the Concordat had deemed theoretically impossible, the Admiral finally understood the truth. They'd been studying us, he realized. For how long? The answer came when a human communication burst reached them on their most secure channel, a message too precise to be guesswork. "Admiral Zex Terra, we've monitored your species since your scout ship crashed near Roswell in 1947. You've been watching us. We've been watching you." As Behemoth's boarding craft approached the flagship, Zex Terra faced the most humiliating moment in Concordat history. Humanity hadn't just developed in unexpected ways. They had systematically prepared for this exact confrontation, studying Concordat technology from recovered scout ships while presenting a carefully crafted image of primitive development to the galaxy. The greatest deception in galactic history was complete, and the Concordat had fallen for it entirely. The Concordat reinforcement fleet emerged from hyperspace expecting to rescue Admiral Zex Terra's beleaguered forces. Instead, they found a graveyard of disabled vessels and the Admiral's flagship surrounded by Earth dreadnoughts. Fleet Commander Voss of the Earth Coalition Force stood on the bridge of Dreadnought Kraken, studying the tactical display of the incoming ships with quiet satisfaction. The newcomers maintained perfect Concordat formation, unchanged for millennia and thoroughly documented in Earth's archives. "They never adapt," she remarked to her second-in-command. 3,000 years of victory made them complacent. She keyed her command channel. "All vessels, implement Perseus Protocol." Across the solar system, previously invisible installations on Mars, Europa, and Titan activated simultaneously. The reinforcement fleet suddenly found themselves caught in a complex web of gravitational distortion fields that limited their maneuverability. "Concordat Reinforcement Fleet, this is Commander Voss of Earth Coalition Force," she broadcast. "Your vessels are contained within our defense grid. Power down weapons or face immediate neutralization." Aboard the lead Concordat vessel, Supreme Commander Kel Varen received the human transmission with disbelief. How could primitives establish defensive positions throughout their entire system without detection? His tactical officer's response chilled him. "The installations appear to have been in place for decades, sir. Some show evidence of continuous upgrade cycles dating back nearly a century." Meanwhile, Ambassador Chen led a boarding party onto the captured Concordat flagship. Admiral Zex Terra awaited them on the bridge, his posture rigid with wounded pride. "You deceived us," he accused as Chen approached. "You invaded us," she countered simply. "Did you expect us to reveal our true capabilities to your scout ships? We detected your first observation post in lunar orbit in 1951. The Admiral's eyes widened. "Impossible. Our stealth technology was effective against what you thought was our level of technology," Chen finished for him. "Not against what we actually possessed." She gestured to the view screen showing the battle unfolding as the reinforcement fleet ignored Commander Voss's warning. Earth's response revealed their greatest tactical advantage: specialization. While Concordat's strategy relied on uniformity and overwhelming force, each Earth vessel operated with unique capabilities designed for specific combat scenarios. The Dreadnought Colossus deployed atmospheric countermeasures that disabled the Concordat's targeting systems. Typhon specialized in electronic warfare, broadcasting signals that confused their navigation. Cerberus launched boarding drones that attached to Concordat hulls and began infiltrating their systems faster than their engineers could lock them out. Most disturbing to the Concordat commanders were the human pilots who voluntarily linked their nervous systems directly to their craft, achieving reaction times that made their ships seem alive. "Your technology should not be possible," Zexterra stated, watching another of his vessels disabled by weapons outside Concordat understanding. "We developed along different paths," Chen explained. "Your people focused on energy manipulation. We explored gravitational technology, quantum physics, and neural interfaces." She turned to face him directly. "But our greatest advantage wasn't technological. It was psychological. Your species became complacent in victory. Ours remained paranoid in peace." On the view screen, Commander Voss's voice addressed the reinforcement fleet again. "This is your final warning. Power down, or we will be forced to demonstrate our planetary defense capabilities." The Concordat commander responded by ordering all ships to fire on Earth itself, a standard tactic against resisting worlds. As expected, Voss sighed, then issued a single command: "Activate Aegis Array." The moon's surface seemed to shimmer as thousands of previously hidden installations activated simultaneously. The combined energy of the Concordat barrage, intended to devastate Earth's surface, was absorbed completely by the lunar defense grid. Then, in a demonstration of precision targeting, Earth returned fire. Needle-thin beams from the lunar installations struck the Concordat vessels, not to destroy them, but to disable specific systems: weapons, engines, communications. Within minutes, the entire reinforcement fleet hung powerless in space, disabled without a single casualty. Ambassador Chen watched Admiral Zexterra's face as he witnessed the unthinkable: the complete neutralization of the Concordat's finest ships by defenses hidden on a natural satellite. "How long?" he asked quietly. "How long have your people been preparing for this?" Chen's reply was delivered without pride or malice, simply stating a fact that rewrote galactic history: "Since we first looked up at the stars and understood we might not be alone." In that moment, Admiral Zexterra grasped the full extent of humanity's deception and the terrifying implications for the galaxy. They hadn't just defeated the Concordat, they had fundamentally changed the rules of interstellar power forever. The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Chen strode in, accompanied by Captain Okonkwo and Dr. James Mbeki in his 7-foot-tall mechanical exosuit. The three humans appeared small against the massive architecture designed to intimidate lesser species, yet they moved with unwavering confidence. Behind them floated a holographic display showing the current position of Earth's Dreadnought fleet, now revealed to number not 8, but 37 vessels, stationed near key Concordat worlds. The Council chairperson, a Viridian whose species had served the Concordat for millennia, attempted to maintain protocol. "The representatives from Sol 3 will state their grievances and petition for leniency." Chen smiled politely. "We are not here to petition. We are here to present evidence." Dr. Mbeki activated a series of holographic displays throughout the chamber. For the past century, Earth has intercepted and documented Concordat communications across 17 sectors. Our findings reveal systematic violations of the Concordat's own stated principles. The displays showed recordings of Concordat officials deliberately suppressing technological advancement on 300 worlds, biological warfare deployed against species deemed evolutionary competitors, and the systematic exploitation of thousands of civilizations. The gallery erupted as representatives from subjugated worlds recognized confirmation of suspicions they had harbored for generations. A Proximan delegate rose to her feet. "These are fabrications. Earth cannot have gathered this intelligence across such distances." Chen nodded to Captain Okonkwo, who activated a small device on her wrist. Instantly, a communication channel opened directly to a dreadnought orbiting the Proximan homeworld, a feat that should have been impossible across such distances without relay stations. "We developed quantum communication technology centuries ago," Chen explained. "Distance is irrelevant. We've been listening to everything." The council chairperson attempted to restore order. "Even if these accusations have merit, Earth's aggressive military action was in direct response to unprovoked attack." Chen interrupted. "The Concordat fired first. We defended ourselves with proportional force and minimal casualties." She activated another hologram showing the casualty reports from the battle. Despite the complete defeat of the Concordat fleet, less than 20 crew members had died, all from catastrophic system failures rather than direct weapons fire. "We could have destroyed your vessels completely," Captain Okonkwo stated. "We chose not to." The council chamber grew tense as the implications became clear. Earth possessed technology beyond Concordat understanding, had systematically gathered intelligence for centuries, and now had military assets positioned throughout Concordat space. "What are your demands?" asked the chairperson finally. "Territorial concessions, resource rights." Chen's proposal shocked everyone. "We don't want your empire. We want a genuine federation where advancement benefits all species." The holographic display shifted to show a new organizational structure, one where power was distributed among member worlds rather than concentrated in the Concordat leadership. "Earth will share its quantum communication technology freely with any world that joins this new federation," Chen continued. "Information should not be controlled by a single power." A Concordat counselor rose in fury. "This is sedition. The Concordat will never accept." Dr. Mbiki simply activated another hologram showing the Concordat homeworld with 3 dreadnoughts in orbit. "Consider carefully whether continuing your current path serves your people's best interests." The chamber erupted into chaos as delegates from dozens of worlds began speaking simultaneously. Chen raised her hand, and the room's communication system, now under Earth control, muted all channels. "We understand this is difficult," she said into the silence. "Change always is. But consider this. For 3,000 years, the Concordat has claimed that its rule brought stability through technological superiority. That claim has been disproven today." She gestured to Captain Okonkwo and Dr. Mbeki. "Humanity achieved our advancement while constantly at war with ourselves. Imagine what this galaxy could accomplish with genuine cooperation." By day's end, 27 formerly subjugated species had declared independence from the Concordat and requested Federation protection. The revolution Chen had initiated wasn't one of military conquest, but of information freedom. As they departed the council chamber, Admiral Zex Terra, now serving as a reluctant liaison between the Concordat and Earth, approached Chen privately. "You could have destroyed us completely," he observed. "Why didn't you?" Chen's reply was simple yet profound. "Because domination was your way, not ours." She handed him a small communication device. "When your leaders are ready to discuss genuine partnership rather than surrender terms, use this. The frequency bypasses your military channels." The Admiral studied the human woman carefully. "You planned for everything." "Not everything," Chen admitted. "Just the most likely outcomes. That's what humans do. We prepare for the worst while hoping for the best." 5 years after first contact, Admiral Zex Terra stood on the observation deck of Earth's orbital diplomatic station, watching vessels from across the galaxy dock at the massive structure. His ceremonial blade, once a symbol of Concordat dominance, now hung in a museum on Earth labeled Beginning of the Federation Era. The Admiral served as military liaison between former Concordat worlds and the Federation, a position that still felt strange after a lifetime spent conquering rather than cooperating. "Admiring the view?" asked a familiar voice. Zex Terra turned to find Fleet Admiral Maya Okonkwo approaching, her uniform now bearing the insignia of the Galactic Federation rather than Earth's military. "The efficiency is impressive," he acknowledged. 6 different species vessels docking simultaneously with no collisions or protocol violations. Okonkwo smiled. "Sharing traffic control systems helps. No more proprietary technologies kept secret from lesser species." She handed him a glass of amber liquid, Scotch whiskey, which he had surprisingly developed a taste for despite his different biology. "Did you know," Zex Terra asked after they had watched the ships in companionable silence, "that some Concordat historians now claim we always suspected Earth's true capabilities?" Okonkwo laughed. "Rewriting history already. That's actually faster than our projections suggested." The Admiral made the clicking sound that humans had learned was his species' version of a chuckle. Pride is a powerful force, even in defeat. Below them, Earth rotated slowly, its surface now dotted with architectural styles from a dozen worlds, as the planet embraced its new role as the Federation's diplomatic center. "Did you ever suspect?" Zex Terra asked suddenly. "When your people detected our observation posts, did anyone consider we might not be the threat you prepared for?" Okonkwo's expression grew thoughtful. "We debated that possibility extensively, but our history taught us to prepare for the worst while hoping for the best." She pointed toward Earth visible through the viewport. "We've been preparing since our first radio signals attracted attention in the early 20th century. The first Dreadnought prototype was completed in 1943, hidden beneath Lake Baikal." The Admiral's eyes widened. "Before your species split the atom. The technology came from a different path," she explained. "Gravitational manipulation rather than nuclear physics. We explored multiple scientific branches simultaneously instead of following a single development tree." As they watched, a new class of vessel emerged from Earth's atmosphere, sleeker than the Dreadnoughts but equally imposing. "The Explorer class," Okonkwo explained. "For the first time, we're building ships not designed for war." The vessel's hull gleamed as it accelerated away from Earth, heading toward unexplored regions beyond former Concordat space. "Your species continues to surprise me," Zex Terra admitted. "We expected you to establish dominance after defeating us. Instead, you've created genuine partnerships with former subject worlds." "Domination is ultimately unsustainable," Okonkwo replied. "We learned that from our own bloody history." Below them, at the Federation Academy in former New Zealand, students from across the galaxy studied everything from Earth's military history to its art and philosophy. The curriculum emphasized humanity's contradictions, a species capable of both terrible conflict and remarkable cooperation. "The greatest irony," Zex Terra observed, "is that the Concordat's defeat may have saved us from our own stagnation. Our technology had barely advanced in 5 centuries. Okonkwo nodded. "Complacency is the enemy of innovation. That's why the Federation Constitution requires rotation of leadership and prohibits technological monopolies." The Admiral raised his glass in a gesture he had learned from humans. "To unexpected outcomes." "And new beginnings," Okonkwo replied, completing the toast. As they drank, a notification chimed on Okonkwo's communication device. "The Arcturus expedition has made contact with a previously unknown civilization. Initial readings suggest they may be even more advanced than our combined technologies." Zex Terra tensed instinctively. "A threat? An opportunity," Okonkwo corrected him gently. "For knowledge, cultural exchange, and mutual growth." The Admiral considered this perspective, so different from the conquest-oriented thinking that had defined his career. After a moment, he found himself nodding in agreement. "The Federation approach. I'm still learning it." "So are we all," Okonkwo assured him. "But that's the point of this grand experiment. We learn together." As they turned back to the viewport, the Explorer vessel vanished into faster-than-light travel, heading toward the unknown, with neither fear nor conquest in mind, just curiosity and the hope for peaceful contact. The galaxy, once ruled by the iron will of the Concordat, now faced an uncertain but promising future under the guidance of a species whose greatest strength had proven to be not their weapons, but their adaptability, creativity, and ultimately, their capacity to choose cooperation over dominance when given the chance.